Hi, this is the Be Well with Michelle Greenwell podcast. Our heartwarming conversation is designed to lift you on your wellness journey. Grab your cup of tea and enjoy the podcast. Before we begin today's podcast interview, I want you to do a little bit of reflecting on how you champion yourself daily. Do you congratulate yourself on a job well done or for having a good idea? Do you begin your day in a way that says to yourself and your body that you're there to support and to provide the best for an energizing and uplifting day? Do you make choices in your day that lift you up and hold you, or do you respond to the demands of the day as they come your way? These are some deep questions, and they may have answers that might be readily available. But if you've been doing some reflective work, or if you do champion your own success, you might have been able to respond quickly. But if you aren't, then that champion of wellness for self-worth, success, and health, that might be holding you back and not allowing you to find the hero within. My guest today, Amy Thurman, was living a similar life to what you probably recognize as normal until one day it was not, and then there was no turning back. Her story and her attitude of thriving has brought her forward to today, and we're here to celebrate how we can champion our own journeys. Here's what I want to share about Amy before we get started. Amy Thurman is co-author of the international best-selling series, Resiliency AF, Stories of Resilience. She has a master's degree in Educational and Community Renewal from the University of Oklahoma, is one of the real 50 over 50 women who are quietly making a difference in the world. She's an inspirational speaker, podcast host, disabled entrepreneur, and a story development coach whose resilience is unmatched and doesn't let life with a broken neck deter her from realizing her dreams. She's the author of the upcoming self-help book, Finding My Hero Within, and that will compel you to confront the excuses holding you back from living the life of your dreams. She lives in Norman, Oklahoma, with her teenage son and 2 chickens, Lumos and Nox, where she offers clean, anti-aging, long-lasting, smudge-proof SeneGence cosmetics and skincare. And if you don't already have your tea ready today, make sure to take a few moments to choose something that empowers you. And then let's get started. Hello, Amy, and thank you for coming to join me today.
Oh my goodness, Michelle, you have me in tears just listening to all of the kind things you had to say about me. Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here.
When we start putting our pieces together of who we are, right? And the things that we've accomplished and the things that people recognize us for, sometimes it's the things we didn't even realize too, they just kind of come along the way with us. So it is always lovely to hear some of the pieces that is being recognized out in the world about us. So thank you for recognizing that.
Yeah, of course.
Amy, what tea have you brought today to empower our discussion?
I'm so glad you asked me this because I actually want to ask your opinion and your advice on which one you think I should be drinking. All of the things that have been happening in my world, it's very, very exciting. Like there's so much going on that I'm so thankful for. And it has brought about a sense of, I would call it excitement, but it feels like anxiety in my body.
Mm-hmm.
And so does that make sense? Like I'm excited about everything, but it feels like anxiety. And so I feel like I need, one of the teas that's going to help me either be able to process that or work better with that energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I would love to know your thoughts.
Okay. So do you have a couple blends there that you have chosen as a possibility for today? Or are you thinking about pulling in the energy of the herbs of some of the tea blends I have?
Yes, I want to use the ones you have.
Okay. All right.
I do have nettle leaf and thyme and, things like that, but
yeah,
I would love some of the blends that you have.
Yeah. So when we go to the cupboard, very often we grab the same tea blend each time we go to the cupboard. And some people
Yeah.
will grab the same tea blend until they run out of it, and then they'll go replenish it. But they haven't really thought about what it has in it, what is its purpose, how can it lift you up. So when we're looking at tea from the Cape Breton Tea Company, we have intentions on each of our packages. So as you were saying, fear and anxiety is ramping up a little bit. So that might be something from our 5 element series, our teas with intention, the rising tides. And rising tides is for the water element, and that supports fear and anxiety, those emotions that pop up when that system doesn't have what it needs. So that's one option. And another one is called Awesome Island Passion. And this one actually, also from the Tea with Intention series, helps to support governing and central meridian, which is our center core of how everything is functioning. And that one's just an overall beautiful, calming, gentle blend. And so sometimes with fear and anxiety, and I'm sure with all the things that you've been doing, you've been going spearheading into all these new experiences, new opportunities, and trying to respond to things you don't know about and then do the best that you can with it. So this is a great way then to just be very gentle with the system and just support it from underneath. And then the herbs in that package are like herbs from the garden, but the way that they're brought together is a very special way. So those would be 2. Now that would be off the top of my head, but the other way to do tea choices is through the body pendulum. And that's where you take your tea blend, and this is how you can work with the teas in the cupboard, is to take the tea blend, put it in front of your belly, and if you're not standing solid, but you kind of waver around a little bit, or maybe lean forward or backward, that tells you that energetically it's not going to support you.
Mm.
And so that opportunity to make the choices then, I know for lots of people, they'll say, but my tea cupboard is full. One, if the tea cupboard's full, it tells you you're not inspired to drink the tea because it should be gone.
Right. Yes, that's
Right?
right.
We buy tea because it looks good and you think, oh, I like that package, or I like the ingredients. Oh, and then you put it in the cupboard and then you save it for a special occasion. But that's not what tea's for. Tea's there to lift you up, and the herbs have a shelf life. You want to use them. So one way to go to the cupboard, start to find out those teas that are really going to lift you up, and anything that is not going to lift you up, they might be expired, and it might not be anything that is going to support you. So then start making the choices that's really going to be energizing.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, that's so good. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I am that person who will go grab the same tea every morning, the same tea every night, just because it's what I do,
Yeah.
and have never thought about actually asking my body, is this what you need right now?
Yeah.
Well, and when it comes to tea. And so I'm definitely going to try that. That's
Yeah.
such good advice. Thank you.
You're welcome. And one of the things that people will do too is use language. So you had said, you could ask your body, is this tea good for me? If you say that, yes, it could be good for you, but it might not be good for you right now. So language can be a barrier of getting the correct answer. So it's really nice to not have any language, and just
Mm.
when you stand and you know what it feels like to stand solid, and then to put that tea in front of the belly and you find that you just start wavering, that's all you need to know. Energetically, it's just not going to be there for you. Yeah. So,
Wow. I
yeah,
love that. Definitely going to do that. Thank you.
you're welcome. So is there anything in your mug at the moment?
Yes, I actually have thyme. That's one I do every morning. I drink thyme tea, and sometimes I will mix it with a little bit of peppermint.
Yep.
And then every evening I use nettle leaf and lemon balm before I go to bed.
Nice. Beautiful.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And those herbs I've got on my YouTube channel under the tea playlist. I have different herbs and how they combine and what they'll do to lift you up. So that might be something to go and check out for the choices that you have been making, because that might give you a message of, because you made those choices, those were the things that you were supporting yourself with, which is also really nice to know. And we do have
Yeah.
Time Passages tea, and it's lovely. That one is great for grief, guilt, and regret.
Mm.
So trying to transition you out of places you've been into where you want to go. So, yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
good.
So that's an interesting choice for our conversation today, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I put into my mug today because launching in the next couple of weeks here is the Harmony Blends. And I'm just lifting my cup up because it's as soon as I start to talk about the herbs, it's like I have to hold them and put my
Yeah, I
hand
wanted
around
to
them.
grab mine too. Yeah.
So I have Island Vitality. And this one I chose because it has two herbs that I wanted to bring forward today. One is echinacea and the other is hawthorn berry. And I have a huge hawthorn tree in my yard. We have hawthorn grows everywhere here, and it has those spiked needles on it, so you don't ever want to come in contact with it. But it has the most amazing berries. So it's an interesting plant. And what I
Yeah.
wanted to share with you was the way that I look at the herbs is how they lift us up. So echinacea people will think about for colds, and then they'll hope that the echinacea is going to help heal them. But rather than putting all the pressure on the herb that it's got to be the one way to get better, what I want to do is have people think about how that one herb can support, and then how it supports with other herbs and other choices you're making in the day. So from Evelyn Mulders, who has Whispering Herbs Healing Messages, this is what she shares about the echinacea. It supports the crown chakra, which helps to connect us to our higher self, and it supports the earth element from the spleen meridian system. So that's our immune system. And its message is, I include myself and participate in life. So for our conversation today, which our focus is on your hero within, I thought that was a great way to start to think about how we might be supporting ourselves and making sure we are a part of the day rather than a reaction to the day. And the second part is hawthorn berries. Its message is, I have the energy and courage to undertake all tasks at hand. Now, you did ask me about fear and anxiety, right? Off the top of my head was one answer, but now here's another answer where you can start to see if that's what you want to pull out. So the hawthorn supports the sacral chakra, where we build and store energy and where we connect with who we really are. And the hawthorn is part of the fire element, supports the heart and our passion for life.
Wow.
All
Ooh,
from
I
a
love
corny little
that.
bush.
Right. I have to write that one down.
All right. So these aren't the only aren't the only herbs in the tea, but you can see how engaging with the herbs, we have incredible support that can lead us through the day. And the conversation that the herbs have together changes the way they also support. So just to keep that in mind, because a lot of people do choose a couple from the garden, a couple blends from the garden, but they choose them for what they know they're good for healing, or that they're just good for you. And then you can start to look at, okay, I want to cultivate this piece and I want to cultivate this piece. And then how can we bring that in? So,
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
yeah.
It's a whole language all it's on its own, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
So my journey to the tea cupboard now, I've started to get rid of all the teas that I collected. I didn't let them go, even though I've got my own tea in the cupboard. I still had them there because I bought them. I didn't want to waste them. But I'm
Right.
realizing as I look at them, I'm still never going to drink them. I'm never going to choose them. And so that's just a fact for me. So I'm letting them go, which is difficult to
Yeah.
do, but getting there. And then the second part is I go to the cupboard and I like to, when I open the drawer, I've got several drawers, but when I open it, it's like, which one is the one that's going to jump out today? That's what's
Mhm.
in my mind, right? And when I go to make the cup of tea, I'm like, oh, and I'm involved in the uplifting part, I guess. So what I
Yeah.
invite those people listening, because that's a lot of information to get to the start of our intro today, is also thinking about, what does it smell like? So
Mm.
right now, as I've held this up, my tea is a purple blue today. I didn't put it in a mug that people could see, unfortunately, but it's a purple blue, and it's got blue kind of wrapped around the top of it as it's kind of been sloshing around. And that's from the blue pea flower. And so that's giving me a color experience. And then also when I go to smell, and as soon as you do that, you bypass the consciousness and you get into the senses. And the senses are what bring us alive. Our
Yes.
head can control things, but our senses really lift. So, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I
Yeah.
love that.
All right. So with that, I'm going to say cheers to the start of our
Cheers.
really big conversation. And
You can't see mine. Here it is. Cheers.
in Cape Breton, we'd also say slonge. So,
Okay.
mm, all right. And then the other piece is, that
Yeah,
as you
I
bring
do know
everything
that.
in.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
very familiar with that.
All right. So thank you for asking those questions and for letting me bring the tea up and share more about it. I just had no idea until I started really diving into the herbs and then looking at how can I explain them in a better way and how can I engage with them in a better way. So it's lovely to
Yeah.
chat about it.
Oh, it's fascinating. So thank you for offering that information.
Okay, Amy, let's talk about your new book because I'm really excited about the opportunity for people to find their hero within. Do you want to share what this book is about?
Oh my goodness. It's called Finding My Hero Within, a journey from incapacitation to empowerment. And it's my 10-year journey of living with a broken neck that went undetected for 6 months, and how I had to fight my way through all of the emotions, all of the fear, all of the sadness, everything that came with it to fight my way through the system, how I had to fight to get disability because I can only hold my head up for a few hours at a time. I have to rest a lot. A lot of things came with, I mean, as you can imagine, living with a broken neck comes with a lot of issues. And it has been a really, really long, hard road that, I almost didn't make it out of, that I literally prayed to die and had a plan to do it. I knew that I could make it happen with all the pain medication that I had. And that was my plan. And this moment of clarity, you're in that muddy place with, if you've ever experienced depression, you just can't think clearly, is the way I explain it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just had this moment of clarity that just gave me another option and helped me realize that I have a choice. Because in the moment, I didn't think I had a choice. I thought, this is the answer. This is the only way I can do this I felt like a burden to my family. They were having to do everything for me because I couldn't even take myself to the restroom. And I couldn't speak above a whisper. I couldn't walk. I couldn't hear or see correctly. It was horrible. I couldn't lift my head off the bed. So I was literally flat in the bed for 23 hours a day for nearly a year after the accident because they didn't know what was wrong with me. And for 6 months, nobody could figure it out. And so, as you can imagine, I went into that deep, dark place. And this moment of clarity told me that I had a choice, that there is another way if I wanted to choose it. And that jarred me enough to press pause on my plan. And I realized what it basically told me that is, if I could fight to live, if I could take the same energy I was using so hard trying to fight to die, which is what I was doing, and turn it around and use it to fight to live instead, that if I could get better, maybe I could use my experience to help other people. And that was what it was. That was the whole thing. Like, if I can get better, I can use my experience to help other people and still be there for my family. And so it was, as a former educator and social worker, my life has always been about helping people. That's just part of who I am. And so it was that piece. It's like the universe, the energy, whatever you want to call it, that was bringing me that moment of clarity, knew that that's what I needed to really encourage me to make this choice instead of the other one, that I would be able to use what will transpire to help other people. And so it was then that I was, excuse me, introduced to the wisdom of Rumi. And I came across this poem that is now what my business is named after, Polish the Mirror. And I have now a Polish the Mirror, practice and philosophy that I have been able to um, take and put into my life, apply into my life, so that it has eventually led to me being able to find my hero within. And so there's a lot more to the story, obviously. But that's what the book is about, is my journey of wanting to die, almost dying. Actually, my life was spared so many times, and I lay that out in the book, like how many times the doctor said to me, "Oh, this should have killed you. Oh, this should have killed you. Oh, this should have killed you." And it was obvious to me that my life was
9 lives.
spared, yes, for a reason, and that I had a
Mhm.
purpose in being spared and in sharing my story with people, and have been able to take all of that and use it in a way that I now have found my hero within. I don't have to look outside myself to for someone to come rescue me. That
Mhm.
person I have always been looking for to come rescue me, I found her. She was in my mirror the whole time, just waiting for me. And I worked my way through that and figured that out. And that's available for everyone. That's not like I'm nothing special. Like it's just, it's just being open and willing to do that, to see things from a different perspective. And I'm just carrying on here because I get fired up when I talk about this. So if you need to interrupt me, go ahead, Michelle. But I could just talk about this forever. So I'll take a breath. I'll take a drink of my tea.
Well, I was just thinking about what you just said, which is you're nothing special. But the piece that I think educators forget about is that not everybody's an educator. Some people just want to just live their life and they do things differently. So they might be artists, they might spend time doing crafts. They're making the world a better place in a more subtle way. But an educator is more at the front and is willing to stand up and to speak about it and to bring ideas forward. And I think sometimes as educators, we forget that piece that makes us a little bit different. So as we look in the mirror, sometimes we don't have the voice to share that part of educating, but then to be able to find that voice and say, I can do that. And I know your message is that everybody has this ability to find their way forward. But I'm really interested in the fact that as an educator, what that's meant for you, because it empowered you in a slightly different way than other people might be. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the educational social work component of who you are?
Sure. And it's so interesting to me that you bring that up because I had never thought about it that way. That, that is something that I have as my background, in my experience, that has helped me along the way. And, when you think about, and I say this, like teaching is like being on a mini stage every day. Like you're just on a stage every day. You have an audience, they're not always happy and willing to listen to you, but you still have the audience, on a mini stage. And so, that helped prepare me for when I got on a real stage and spoke to over 2,000 people. But I think it's just, and I didn't set out like this. I need to make it clear that I didn't set out to do all that I have done. Like it wasn't in my big plan, like, oh, I want to accomplish this, this, and this, and this. It was just like the intention was there. I want to use what I've been through to help other people, whatever that looks like. And so it's like once I opened that up and just said, I just want to use this to help other people, that things just started coming to me, like doors started opening and conversations started happening that led me to different people and to different things to allow me to do things that I never would have dreamed before. But I do feel like that social worker educator component, now that you say that, did play a big part in that because I know how to work with people. I guess that's pretty much what it is. Like I have that ability to. I was the one. Like when I was a social worker, when people were in the situation like I was in, where I was going to take that handful of pills, I was the one they would call, and I would be the one to either talk them through it or get them help. And then I became the on the other side of that. Um, but you can't be in that role without having some kind of communication skill, I guess you would say.
Mhm.
And so I do feel like exactly what you said, that those roles that I had before the accident really have helped me along the way and get to where I am now. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Like I said, I had never thought about that perspective before.
Mm-hmm. 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 And
Yeah.
I'm thinking about um, the subtle things that other people do. So if they're not an educator, they haven't been in social work, they're not thinking in a community-based perspective. It's the little things. I know around here in Cape Breton, it's a small community. We have a lot of seniors, but when I watch, I'll call them the angels. When I watch the angels walking around, they're the ones that smile at everyone, take notice of who doesn't have someone to chat with, who picks somebody up and drives them to an event because they know they like to get out. Those are the small, subtle things. And as I'm thinking about your idea of polishing the mirror, and somebody's looking in the mirror and wondering, what value do I have to offer? Because I'm not an educator, and because I'm not in social work, and I wasn't educated in that area, I'm educated in other areas, or I really do like to do crafts. You have that craft that somebody's going to pick up and say, this I love, and this is going to be inspiring to me today. There's just so many ways that we all contribute. And so as we're thinking about the hero within, it's just so lovely to think about, what are my special gifts and how do I make a difference in other people's lives? Do you want to share any
Yeah.
more about that?
Yeah. I would like to say that it is so important to understand yourself, which that's part of polishing the mirror, but understand what makes your heart sing, which I think that's the term you used. We were in a meeting the other day,
Mm-hmm.
to understand what makes your heart sing. And it doesn't matter how small it is. Like when you said crafts, like some people may consider that to be a small thing, but if that is your thing, if that's what makes your heart sing, and you do it in such a way that you share love, like I, let's see, I'm trying to rein it in because there's so much I want to say here. Um, it's the intention and the emotion with which you send it out into the world. I love to write handwritten notes to my clients, and when they receive it, it's like they get they tell me it's like they get this whoosh of love, like they feel what I'm putting into that, so that when they open it, when they receive it, they feel that. Does that make sense? I know you
Mm-hmm.
understand that, Michelle, that
Yes.
whatever you're sending out with it is what's going to be received by the
Mm-hmm.
person who has it, who receives it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I was just thinking about therapeutic touch, which is one of the modalities I'm trained in. And we have they call them caplets, but little blankets that people can just put over their lap or their shoulder, or it might be really small doily, but you infuse that with healing energy. And so when
Mm.
you offer that to somebody who is, in the hospital or is healing from something, and to be able to say, just put that on the spot that's really sore, and I've infused all my love into that space. It's like the socks that get knitted and sent off in boxes. We don't think
Yeah.
about the power that comes in that, and those notes, that smile. There's just so many ways. And as you know as we're thinking about the people that might be in a similar situation to what you were in, where they're just not finding that hope and that peace to be able to turn that corner, to start to really think about, what are the tiny things that they do that make a difference in the people they exchange with every day. And maybe they're not exchanging in a way, maybe they're grouchy and, because they don't feel good. But then to think about, okay, if I was to change that, what would it mean? And what does that mean for the people who are caregiving for me at the moment? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of the emotion frequency chart that I created, that I use with my clients. It's actually on my website under the free tab, but it's 100 different emotions that I have taken and I've put into 10 different stages according to their emotional vibrational frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And so the low levels are, really low. You feel down, you feel sad, your perspective is, not as good. And then on the higher level, your perspective is completely different. You're motivated. You want to talk about ideas and, processes, and you just see things from a different perspective. And so when you were talking about that, it made me think of what I tell my clients is, figure out where you are now. If you're grouchy and cranky right now, that's how you are. Like, don't don't fight it. Emotions have a reason for being there. They're tools for us. So understand that, okay, I'm grouchy and cranky. I don't necessarily want to be this way. So what is one thought? This is what I tell them. What is one thought I can change that would take me to a higher frequency, that would just take me to that very next level? I'm not asking you to jump 4 levels because your body won't do that. But what is just one thought that you can change that will take you to just a higher vibrational frequency? And so, whatever it is I'm cranky and grouchy about, like, I will use myself as an example. This morning, my son, who's 14 now, was dragging his feet and was going to be late for school. And so then that, it started,
Mhm.
and so I realized what was happening. That's the thing. You have to acknowledge what's happening, understand. And so then I instant was like, okay, I've got to change this thought. The thought that I was having was, I can't believe he's doing this, that kind of stuff. And I thought, no, I'm changing this thought. This is his responsibility. He will get consequences if he's late, that kind of stuff. So it
Mhm.
took the pressure off me. But it's really as simple. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it's as simple as that. Just understanding, like being aware of what you're thinking and being willing to just change one thought can make such a huge difference in your life. And so I love to share that because that has been extremely instrumental in me being able to find my hero within and learn to polish the mirror of my life. It's very powerful.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And when you do have that one change, like you said, the hero within, that's then that piece of being able to recognize and say, I did it. I did that one step, and then being able to recognize it. And as I opened with, how do you approach yourself and when do you give accolades back to yourself? You might make that change and not do any recognition, but it's really nice to take a moment and sit and maybe have a cup of tea, but really think about what was the consequences of me making that change and what was the consequence it was for the other person I was interacting with. And a lot of times we don't think about that because, like you said, he's dragging his feet for a reason. So
Yeah.
if he is, what is that reason? And hurrying up and telling them you're going to be late isn't going to change it. The reason's still going to be
Right.
there. But you certainly then can be open to hear, I have an assignment I didn't finish. I have an exam today. I didn't sleep well. All the things you wouldn't have heard if your reaction had come forward first. And then to be able to come
Yeah.
back and reflect to yourself, I made that change happen and I made that change happen for somebody else. And I think we forget
Yeah.
about that piece. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is so true. I love that because we are not in isolation as much as we want to think that we are. Everything, excuse me, everything we do affects other people,
Mm-hmm.
even if we're by ourselves and we're doing that craft or we're writing that note. The energy goes into what we're doing. And so, yeah, everything we do affects other people.
Mm-hmm.
And to acknowledge that and celebrate that when it's worth celebrating, I think is a wonderful idea. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just now thinking about all the people who rallied around you for that year, because that would have been a very big undertaking for your family members and your friends to be there to be supportive and to watch you struggle. And that's really hard to watch because they're trying their very best. So could you reflect a little bit about maybe what happened with the relationships when you switched your focus and what that experience might have been like?
Sure. I my husband, he went into caretaker mode. Like he had to switch roles immediately because I couldn't do anything. Our son was 4 years old at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Our daughter was a senior in high school, and our middle son was a freshman in high school. And I literally missed that entire year of their lives and my husband had to take over and do everything. Um, and so, even though I was still laying in the bed after I made that mindset switch, I was still laying in the bed. The energy with which I was laying there made a difference. I started noticing, like, I started looking out the window and noticing the trees, and all of these analogies began coming to me, like the trees are planted in the ground where they're basically dead at first, like where, as a seed, and they can't see the sun, yet they fight their way to the top to get to the sun, to get to what they need. And that encouraged me. It was things like that. It was just it was seeing everything from a whole different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yes, they were still watching me struggle, but it was like they wanted to be around me more. Whereas before, I was just like, I was still in pain, like it was constant pain,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a different energy that I was exuding, after I made that mindset shift. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it did affect the relationships, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then were there new people that came into your life as a result of those choices?
Yeah. After, let's see, when my son started in kindergarten, there were a couple people in our neighborhood who started helping with him. And now we are very, very close. They're two of my closest friends now. And they have encouraged me so much. Like in my book, I talk about I had an opportunity to go to a brain center to stay there for 2 weeks, but it was going to cost $15,000 out of pocket. And so they were the ones who encouraged me to set up a GoFundMe. They convinced me that if I asked people for help, that they would show up for me, that they would come through for me. And they did. I didn't believe they would at first,
Mm-hmm.
but they did. And yeah, I have developed some amazing friendships and connections and community through all of this. And, I want to say right here that part of that was because I was open to sharing what I was going through. If I was going through it in isolation, like I was ashamed or afraid to tell anyone what I was going through, I would not have been able to develop those relationships that I developed. But it was because I was very honest and vulnerable, which is difficult for a lot of people, including me, because I was willing to be vulnerable and share, these are the things I'm struggling with. um, I have so many relationships now in a whole community that I wouldn't have had before. I see it as a gift. I see everything I've been through, even though it's so traumatic and so tragic, I see it as a gift now because it has brought so much joy to my life. And I'm able to help so many more people now than I ever could in a classroom or, in a social work situation. And
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like this is my mission now, to use what I've been through to help other people. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then the idea too of writing a book, that probably wasn't on your horizon either. And
It was not.
how does it feel to, well, you not just one book, because you just finished publishing another one that has had great opportunity. I'll say it that way. Do you want to talk
Yeah.
about the book you've just released?
Yeah, that one, I was a co-author of that one. It's called Resilient AF, Stories of Resilience. And it's 50 stories of resilience. And that has, oh my gosh, it's a bestseller in several categories, and was just at the Oscars in the gifting lounge. So all of those celebrities, media, the press, everyone there got a copy of that. And now it's going to the Emmys. It's going to be at the Emmys in that gifting lounge. And so all of those people there will get a copy. And it's just, like I said, it's just so much bigger than I am, that I never thought about accomplishing any of this, that it's all just happening. I feel like because my intention has always been to help other people. And yeah, it's been so wild. These speaking opportunities that have come out of that, and just, so many different things that have happened, that are just beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the opportunity to look at your story within the story of those other people within the book. That's also a really interesting journey. And it's like we contribute our story, but then when we go and we listen to other people's stories and see how we fit within that whole picture, that also awakens some new ideas too, because people have used different tools to find their way through. Did you have any realizations with some of the other authors that were within that compilation?
It's, oh my gosh, some of those stories. And, I always say my story is very dramatic because, all that I've been through. But when I was reading through some of those other stories, my mouth was agape, like, oh my gosh, people say that about my story, but then I read other people's stories and I feel the same way, like, holy cow, how did they make it through that?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just, depending on loved ones and one of them, it was their family was overseas. I can't remember which country, and so they had to depend on their community that was here instead of the community that they had come from there. And yeah, just so many things in that book. They're just eye-opening. And it's such an inspirational thing because it's not just a sad story of, oh my gosh, this happened. It's this is what happened, and this is how I showed resiliency through what happened. And so it's a very uplifting and encouraging book as well. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm really hearing too, well, it's kind of weaved through everything we've talked about today, is this idea of community and the healing potential cannot engage unless we reach out. So a lot of people really do sit back and try to solve the problem themselves. And when that happens, it just closes everything down. So I'm hoping that people listening, if that's the way they've been reacting, can make that one choice, like you talked about, to say, how am I going to be my hero within and flip this around? And if you reach out to just one person, it doesn't have to be a person you know. You can go find somebody who you don't know if that's how you need to share your story, but to be able to at least figure out one person who you can walk over to and say, here's what's happening. Can you help me?
yes, yes, I love that. And finding my hero within and being able to help uh, find all the answers I seek within. It sounds counterintuitive to asking for help.
Yeah.
When I explain that in the book, that it's not that I'm saying, oh, you have to now do everything on your own. You have to depend on yourself for everything. That's not what finding your hero within is about.
Mm-hmm.
It's about going within to see what needs you have. What are your needs? And I talk about this too, like self love versus soul love, that the self is it's so tainted is not the right word, but there's so many external expectations on the self. The soul is pure love. The soul is who you really are at your core. And so it's looking down and figuring out what your soul, who you really are at your core, so that you can meet the needs of yourself that you can, and then you can be a better community member and be able to use your gifts to help other people. You still rely on the community. You're still a part of the community. You're still a member of that.
Mm-hmm.
But by finding your hero within, you're able to be a bigger presence and a bigger help within that community, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I'm thinking about, as you're talking about the soul level, and I'm thinking about soul mates, and how many soul mates you find as a result of that. Like you said, that your best friends who have come forward as a result of after you decided you were going to make a change, and then
Yeah.
how that blossomed. And so if people are thinking, I don't have that kind of connection with anyone, you didn't. You had connection with people, they were helping you, but there was these gems that came forward because the chemistry changed, and that soul's
Yeah,
purpose also changed. And that's what
exactly.
those people and those souls were waiting for, was for you to create, I guess, that spark, or that turn the light on and say, okay, I'm here and I'm ready. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. So it reminds me of the quote from Dr. Wayne Dyer: "When the student is ready, the teacher will appear." And so, yeah, it's like when you get into that right place that you're supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
then things will start coming to you that you never expected. It's
Mm-hmm.
so true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it all starts within. Like everything starts within.
Everything starts within. Exactly. Um, all right. Well, we went around and through,
I
and
know.
it's just so amazing. So you mentioned that you work with clients. Do you want to talk a little bit about that work that you do?
I have. It's interesting because I have worked with a few clients and they have actually loved the program, but I'm having to revamp it because of everything else happening in my life. I didn't anticipate things exploding the way they have been. And so, because of my chronic fatigue syndrome and other issues that I have physically, I can no longer do like one-on-one coaching sessions, and still do the speaking engagements and the writing and other things. And so I'm putting it into just a course like that you would just work through on your own at your own pace. And so it's a 12-week course that you go through. And it involves, the whole premise is that emotion frequency chart that I created that would go through each of those stages, one stage a week. And we talk in depth about what those emotions are, not the definition of them, but how they feel in the body so you can recognize them. And then we journal. There's a lot of journaling included in that. And so it's emotional, like it's deep. And I ask people, like I have a meeting with them before we start. Are you ready to do this? Are you ready to do this deep emotional work? Because that's what I had to do. That's what I had to do before I could find my hero within, before I could even learn to how to polish the mirror of my life. I had to see what was there first. And it's like when you look in a mirror, you don't very few people will look into their own eyes. And when I do workshops, I ask this question: how many of you, when you look in a mirror, you look into your eyes, like not putting eye makeup on, but like looking into your eyes? And every time someone will say, well, that's just freaky. Like it just freaks me out, And I'm like, exactly, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's because the eyes are the window to the soul. When you're looking into your eyes, you're looking into your soul and you're seeing all the things that you have pressed down and packed down and folded nicely and neatly so that it will never surface again. But they have to surface. Like if we're going to make steps and strides forward and along the path that we're supposed to be on in life, those things have to surface and you have to at least feel them, allow them to serve their purpose
Mm-hmm.
so they can move on. And they will move on once they have served their purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I could talk about that for a long time, but that's basically what the coaching program includes. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And I think that's another key piece for people to realize too is, there's a lot of people waiting for an appointment to see a counselor, waiting for, and everybody's overwhelmed with the mental health and what's happening. And there's
Yeah.
so many self-empowerment tools that are available. So the opportunity that you provide, in that they know they've got 12 weeks, they might be on a waiting list, but they've got 12 weeks to get started and really make a difference. And where will they be in 12 weeks' time? And what is that going to mean for the kind of outreach that they're going to need to do then? Yeah, that's beautiful. And as you said, one-on-one, as our systems already know, is overwhelming.
Yeah.
But we need community. And you actually create community because as people walk through that, they have the opportunity then to become one of your followers or one of the people that engages with your activities. And there's a community right there for them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So how
Absolutely.
can they find you?
The best place is just go to my website. It's www.getamyshelp.com, GETAMYSHELP. All of my social links are there, so you can connect with me on all the socials. There is a coming soon. At the time of this recording, it says coming soon to be on a part of the pre-launch of my book so that you will be informed when it comes out, so you can be one of the first to get it and get my freebie that I'm doing as part of the pre-launch, which includes it's called Behind the Story, and it's a behind the scenes peek it's an exclusive behind the scenes peek at what it was like actually living through all of this. I have lots of videos that I have recorded, pictures I have taken over the past decade. So you actually get to see what it was like living it in real life, and journal entries and reflections. There will be a ticketed price for that later, but for the pre-launch purchasers, that will be free. And so that's on my website. My podcast information is there. It's all there. You can just go to my website. It's pretty much the hub for all the things in a way to get in touch with me or to work with me.
Perfect. Perfect. Excellent. And I have one more thought that came to me because you now have been doing international speaking engagements. What is it like to take your message from where, you were doing social work, small community kinds of things? What is it like to take that message into a much bigger scale?
It's I really struggled with it at first. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, it was a real struggle for me to step into that, because I am so community minded, and I still do things in my local community to help here. But it was really a struggle for me to step into that. But I had to understand that, okay, if this is my purpose to use my story to help other people, then that's just the next logical step. That's just the next step along the path, is being able to reach people across the world. And it's been difficult, but I have, oh my gosh, some of my best, most intimate connections have come from those reaching people across the world. And they get to know me a little bit, and then they refer me to somebody, and then they get to know me. It's just like, it's such a neat thing, because it's a community within itself now. So I see it as, I have my own little community in person here, and then I have this huge community worldwide of other people who just want to support me and help me get my mission out there. And so when I finally came to the point where, okay, I'm going to step into this and I'm going to do this, it has become something, so beautiful that I never imagined that it would be.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, pretty wild.
And that's interesting too, that the piece of, because you talked about fear and anxiety at the beginning, and that idea of looking at that fear, and then you've got those emotions on that chart of yours, and I'm sure trust is in the middle there somewhere. Trust is really important. And in the tea blend that I shared today, it has a coaster, the Harmony coasters. And one of the graphics for it is for trust, because you can't get forward without it. And so that opportunity to step into that place. And one of the phrases we use in our family is face your fear and walk straight through it. And we've
I
had
like that.
some drastic, experiences that we've had to walk through the fear of, but then we have some really simple ones. And those ones, when you look at it and then you step through, and then you think, okay, that was not that bad. Why
Yeah,
did I stand there for so long on the threshold and not cross over the line? That was just crazy. I wasted so
yeah.
much time. So we really, that's just one of the phrases we kind of look at each other and say that phrase and then decide what our action is going to be. So,
I love that. That's so good. And you're talking about trust. I really had to learn to trust myself. Like,
mhm,
that was one of the things that I really struggled with. And, along the way, part of the process, into being able to write this book and put it onto paper, that was extremely difficult, because it was such an emotional thing. But I had to learn to trust myself, that my soul knows the way. It knows, and it wants what's best for me. I need to trust it. And so
mhm,
that was a huge step as well. Yeah.
mhm, mhm. And then you ask, you're asking yourself, why would I not trust myself?
Yeah.
What makes me not want to trust? And then it's like, well, where did that come from? A
Yeah.
lot of times it's, from somebody who said something to you a long time ago that had no idea that it was going to be that kind of impact on you. You go, and why would I give that power to that person when I have it within?
Right.
What is the reason for me to pass that power over, I guess. Best way to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
so true.
So I always like to finish with some kind of a movement. So the podcast is set up, and I didn't talk about it at the beginning, but it's set up so that when people come through our conversation, they actually end up with a healing session. And so at the end, we're hoping they're in a new place making new decisions. But the potential is sitting there. And so I wanted to do something with that. Is there anything that you do movement wise that is an inspiration for you during the day?
I start my day with tapping. I do
Okay.
several rounds of tapping before I
Mm-hmm.
even get out of the bed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And I do, I would call it dancing for me is not real what you think of dancing because of the head injury. I can't like bounce around. But I do, while I'm fixing my son breakfast, I will turn on music and just, move my body to kind of help uh, awaken and get that anxiety, and that fear out a little bit, work that out too.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go for walks,
Mm-hmm.
but nothing like intentional other than those things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. There's nothing like dancing in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
best place to be. I used to dance up and down the aisle at the grocery store when I was a kid, and my mom would be trying not to see me because I would be practicing some dance step going down the aisle. But what I'd like to share today comes from Tai Chi, and I was thinking about some of the activities you were talking about earlier in our conversation. So if people are thinking about they want to make a change, and after listening to this podcast, they're going, okay, I think I'm ready, then this is a movement that will help people move forward and just look at the other side. So I'm going to give the ideas as we're going through. And if you're driving in the car listening to this podcast, you may have to wait to do it later. But if you have the capability to stop whatever you're doing at the moment and just take a few moments to try this. So we have in Tai Chi what's called the seated Danyu. And I do a lot with the seated form of Tai Chi. And the action of the hands is palm goes up first. So I'm just going to put my feet flat on the floor and my hands are out in front of me. And I'm just going to go palms up. I'm just going to extend my arms forward and I'm going to fall into my feet. And then turning the hands over, so palm is now down, I'm going to come back. And all we've done is change perspective. So you have palm up, falling forward, and then palm down to come back. So if you're thinking about, I want to look at this a different way, you have the way you might have been looking at it, could have been palm up. And then now what happens if I turn it over? And so we've created that with our hands. The forward and backward action provides us with the opportunity to go forward. And then when you go to come back, you're pushing into your feet. And that changes your spine. It opens up space in the spine. And that gives you the opportunity. Space is always a great way for change to happen because we're not tight and constricted and just trying to react. And our breathing will change a little bit. And the other thing I'll just point out is as the hands go forward and turn over, they're making a figure eight. And the figure eight is how we connect in with the energy of our body. So this is a great way for us to just really empower the energy and the opportunity to move forward. So thanks for doing that with me. It's one of my
I
favorite.
love that.
It's a really good one when you wake up in the middle of the night and you have, sometimes people have the pains running down their legs. That's a great one to do on the side of the bed. And often it'll be just enough. You can crawl back into bed and go right back to sleep. So I'll share that with the audience just in case anybody's listening that's a thing for them. So, Amy, thank you so much for a wonderful conversation and for sharing so much about who you are and what you're doing. And I truly appreciate all that you are sharing out to the world. And I know it has been overwhelming and big. And I'm glad that you've taken on that challenge because so many people are going to be impacted by your courage and your trust that you can do it. And so I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
You're so kind, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure to be able to talk about things from a different perspective. I love this conversation so much, and I appreciate you having me on here.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We wish you an excellent day and be well. This is Michelle Greenwell with Be Well with Michelle Greenwell podcast, and we're signing off. Thank you for listening to Be Well with Dr. Michelle Greenwell. There are a couple of resources I want to just point out. When you go to the website greenwellcenter.com, you'll have a pop-up window. That pop-up gives you the top 8 easy stress releasers that you can use every day. That's something you can put beside your computer, the bathroom mirror, beside the bedside table. A great resource. Also, my YouTube channel. It is full of playlists with all kinds of different ways that you can activate energy, and bring vitality into your day. You can find that when you go to YouTube at Michelle Greenwell. And last, if you're a Linktree person, Linktree, linktr.ee/Greenwell Center. That has all my resources in one spot. Those are for intricate little things that you can't get everywhere. And it's a wonderful way for me to be able to share all the different aspects of the kind of work I do. So thank you for listening. Be sure to drink that tea. And if you want to have the tea blend that was shared in the podcast today, then be sure to check out capebretontea.ca. Have a wonderful day.